Welcome back in, everybody, to Tide Talk Live. Stacey Blackwood, joined as always by Jake Thomas for our preview and prediction show for Chattanooga at Alabama. Week 12 of the season is upon us. Just 2 games remaining in the regular season, whether you can believe it or not. Jake, it's not the biggest contest of the weekend, but it is for Alabama because it's their next game, so it's important. Good to talk to you, buddy, about the game. Good to catch up. Cannot wait to dive into this matchup and give our thoughts and opinions on what's going to go down in Tuscaloosa this weekend. How you doing, buddy? And you excited for this weekend?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. It sucks for Chattanooga, because they're the next man up, and to take a beat down. And I hope that's what we have. I hope we don't see any kind of letdown or any kind of USF, energy come out in this game. We don't need a close game. We, just right off the bat, I feel like we need to take control early. That way, by at least mid third quarter, we can put some subs in. That way, some of our guys or starters can get some rest, especially with that Iron Bowl looking like it's shaping up to be a fun one now since Auburn has finally found an offense. So
yeah, no doubt about that. Can't wait to kind of talk about that matchup next week, and that's going to be a lot of fun. That's always obviously a big game, especially here in the state of Alabama for both programs. So looking forward to that matchup. And like you mentioned, Auburn has finally kind of found themselves. Now they have played, the bottom feeders of the SEC, so that's probably helped them out a little bit. But they are getting better under Coach Hugh Freeze, and that's not really surprising to me or to you, I'm sure, because he's a good football coach. But we'll talk about Auburn when it is Auburn week. Alabama has Chattanooga this weekend, and like you mentioned, I think it's important for Alabama to not come out, sloppy, to be focused. And Jake, I think if the Kentucky game kind of taught us anything, was that this team kind of has the right mindset in these type of games. So I feel like they're kind of, they kind of have that mojo right now. I think they're playing with confidence. I think they're playing with belief, and I think they're playing with an edge that's going to help them prevent them from kind of coming out sloppy against Chattanooga.
Right. Yeah, I agree, Stacey. We saw, I would say, a different team, in Chattanooga, that played Kentucky last week, because, the offense has got going early on in some games, but it hasn't been consistent. It was really consistent. I mean, it had, I think, 3 straight drives that had 3 straight scores, and put it in the end zone, not just field goals, but in the end zone. And then, it kind of sputtered again, but we had some weird mishaps happen, and then some things went awry that went against us, but we was able to settle down. And then, in the third quarter, we took control of that game again. So the energy level throughout the entire game, though, was really high. So I'm very excited about that. I know it's Chattanooga, but like I said earlier, we don't need to play down to this opponent. We've got to come out strong and keep that offensive rhythm going, especially in this game, just to get some momentum and for the next game. But this game right here, we got to start out strong.
I agree 100%. We're going to talk more about that game here in just a minute. But if you're not already, make sure you do subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Our channel is growing. We're closing in on 2,500 subscribers. So help us reach that goal, and then we'll just create a new goal and just continue to build our brand here on YouTube. We're also free and available on any podcast platform. So make sure you find us, whether it's on Apple or Spotify, Amazon Music, just wherever you find great podcasts, you can find Tide Talk Live. And we're obviously available on social media as well: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok. We're all over the place. So just if you Google Tide Talk Live, you're going to find us on all those platforms, and we would certainly appreciate a follow or subscription on any of those things. All right, Jake, as we look at this matchup, we always start with keys to victory, and we usually look at it from each side of the ball. But I'll be honest with you, I think we've kind of discussed the biggest key to victory for Alabama in this game against Chattanooga, because let's just call a spade a spade. Alabama has better players. Alabama has better coaches. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. They're all the above. They totally outclass Chattanooga. So this game is going to be critical for Alabama from a mindset standpoint, and I think we kind of talked about that in the introduction. So in my opinion, this game just boils down to not X's and O's, not Jimmy's and Joe's. It does come down to Jimmy's and Joe's because ours are just so much better than Chattanooga's. But it comes down to the mindset of this Alabama football team. Jake, if this team shows up ready to play, not sleepwalking at 11 o'clock in the morning against the Chattanooga Mocs. Jake, they're going to take care of business early and often, and this game should be over with, by the second quarter. So to me, the key to victory for Alabama is not what kind of game plan Tommy Rees can come up with, not what kind of game plan Kevin Steele can come up with. It's what these Alabama players decide to do when they take the field at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I agree, Stacey. It's all about the execution, and these guys are starting to execute at a high level at the moment. One good thing about that is the offensive line is playing a lot better. The execution offensive line has gotten tremendously improved throughout the entire season. 0 sacks last week. So I feel like that's going to be one of the keys for me, is to make sure we don't give up any sacks to the Chattanooga Mocs, because if we didn't give any up to Kentucky, who's got a good front seven, by the way, we shouldn't allow anybody in the backfield against Chattanooga this week. So, the offensive line is going to be key for me to continue to grow and develop and become, that force up front like they've been talking about all season. And we was critical of them start out the season because they wasn't doing that. All that talk was for naught. Now they're finally starting to talk, back that talk up, and I'm glad to see it, because those guys are, behemoths. If they want to, they can push anybody in the country around, and you're starting to see that now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'm glad you mentioned Chattanooga's pass rush, because for those of you who don't know, I write for Roll Tide Wire, part of the USA Today Network, and each Wednesday leading up to the opponent Alabama's play, and I kind of give everybody 5 things to know about that opponent. And one of those was about Chattanooga's pass rush. They actually have 2 pretty solid pass rushers, Jake. Jay Person and Ben Bruton. So remember those 2 names. One's a defensive lineman and one's kind of a linebacker, kind of a hybrid type outside linebacker, inside linebacker guy. But they've combined for 13.5 sacks on the season. One guy has 7.5 and one guy has 6. So, they're pretty good pass rushers. I know their competition level is not SEC caliber,
right,
but they're going to test these Alabama offensive tackles, and more specifically Caden Proctor. And you have to believe that that Chattanooga's defensive coordinator is going to try to attack the true freshman left tackle for Alabama. So, like you said, this offensive line needs to show up and play well, just like they did on the road against Kentucky, who does have a pretty good front seven as well. So, I think it's important for Alabama's offensive line to come out and play strong, especially in pass protection, to protect Jalen Milroe. Need to keep him healthy.
Sure.
And just kind of build on the positive momentum that those guys up front have made. And it's not just Proctor. Seth McLaughlin's snaps have been better. He's blocking better. So I just think as a whole, this unit is playing much better. And I think they need to continue that, like you said, on Saturday against Chattanooga.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing I want to see a little bit more of is getting some rushing lanes from the offensive linemen. They're getting better in the rushing attack, but I would still like to see that rushing attack get a little bit more consistent than what it has been. And, this is a good opportunity for that to happen against Chattanooga.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's been some lanes from time to time, because if you notice, it seems like in the second half of games, Jace McClellan is a little more decisive when he runs the football. He gets downhill a little quicker in the second half of games, which allows him to be more productive on the ground. So, I think it's a little bit of both. The offensive line is not quite where it needs to be in run blocking, but I also think the backs have got to help them out some. They got to be more decisive. They got to hit the lanes when they're there. They got to know when to bounce it. So it's a team effort, Jake, like it always is in football. It's a team effort. The 5 guys up front have to block well, and the backs have to hit the holes that are there. So like you said, it's important that the ground game gets going as well against Chattanooga, because I thought in the second half against Kentucky, that was really important, because, Alabama had the big lead. The only way that Kentucky was going to be able to come back is if the defense just collapsed and if the offense was not able to run the football. And the offense really just ran the air out of the ball there in the second half behind, Jace and Rodell and even Justice Haynes a little bit and Jam Miller. So I agree 100%. Got to get that ground game going a little bit better offensively for Alabama. All right, Jake. You look at some players to watch in this matchup against Chattanooga. I want to look at some younger guys, because, and Saban would never want to talk about this, but this is a game where you get to see a lot of younger players. And, the thing is, though, Alabama's playing a lot of young players already.
Right.
So this is kind of a weird situation for Alabama. I think, maybe you see more of Justice Haynes this coming weekend than you've seen all year. But, really outside of that, Jake, I'm not sure who's really going to play a ton that hasn't really been a little bit of a contributor already.
Yeah, you're right, Stacey. And I didn't really think about the younger guys playing because we had so many, like you said, playing already. But it is a fact. If I've got two things I want to say as a standpoint of players to watch, like on the first team defense, I want to see how Kool-Aid and Terrion Arnold and those corners do, because Saban did come say in his press conference today that Chattanooga does have two wide receivers that are SEC caliber. So I mean, I know they're on Chattanooga, but they're still really good at their craft, and that is playing football. So they're going to have a challenge this week. So,
yeah, and not to cut you off, but speaking of those receivers, another thing I listed in what you need to know about Chattanooga is their three leading receivers, Jake. Listen to these numbers from their top three receivers. They have combined for 147 catches for 2,246 yards and 16 touchdowns.
Wow, that's a lot.
And they've got three quality receivers, and their top two guys are really, really good. Javen Watley and Jamoy Mays are the two guys who are they're number one and number two guys, and the third option is Sam Phillips. So they have three targets that are really good. But those top two players, Jake, they're really good football players. I've watched some of their tape, and they can go get it, Jake. So Kool-Aid and Terrion and Trey Amos and all those guys, they're going to have to be on their game to not allow those guys to make big plays, especially early in that contest, and don't give them any sort of momentum in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my eyes on the veterans and that aspect at corners during this game. But as a younger person, I want to see step up and maybe play a lot more in this game. He's played a little bit, but I like to see James Smith on that defensive front get some playing time. He's had flashes, and I think in the USF game earlier in the year, he played a good bit in it, and it seemed like he was working his guy over. He was getting into the backfield. I haven't really seen much of him since, but we got so many good guys in front of him. But there's an opportunity for him to make a claim that say, hey, this is the future. I'm the future of the defensive line, and this is where you're going to see more of me, not only in this game, but for next year and years to come. So I've got my eye to see if he does anything spectacular in this game.
Yeah, when I thought about young players who could, kind of jump off the screen this weekend, I thought of Justice Haynes offensively at running back, and then James Smith along the defensive line, because I think, like you, both those guys have played a little bit, and
right.
But I'm not sure either guy has kind of met the expectations that a lot of us had for those two players this season. But the truth is, it's really not their fault. It's more that the older players have been productive enough that you can't take them off the field. So it's kind of a win-win situation, because you would like to see a little bit more of Justice Haynes or James Smith, but I mean, you're going to take out Jace and Rodell and Jam.
Yeah.
Are you going to take out Justin Aboybe, Tim Smith, Tim Keenan, Jamarian Latham? I mean, are you going to take out those guys? So Damon Payne has played really well when he's gotten in. So it's kind of one of those things where maybe they haven't met the expectations, but it's basically because the guys in front of them played so well they can't come out of the game. So I think that's a win-win for Alabama, because they've played enough to get some reps and experience, but they're not getting enough playing time simply because those veteran guys have stepped up and become the players that we thought they could be.
Yeah, you said it all right there, Stacey, about stepping up and being the players that we thought they could be. We talked about Tim Smith, Justin Borgby doing just that. I really thought James Smith was going to see a lot more playing time this year because how inconsistent the offensive line has been in recent years. But they finally stepped up and started playing this year, and I don't want to pull Tim Smith off the field right now. I don't want to pull Justin Aboybe off the field right now. I don't want to pull Tim Keenan off the field right now. But those guys are playing so great. And then the twos behind them, like you said, Jamarian Latham and
Jaheim
Otis. I mean, who you can't pull them guys off the field when they're playing right now, because they're playing at a high level. And like you said, that's just a win-win, because seems like that's been success. One of the success stories on the defensive side this year is how great the defensive line has played.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's been maybe, outside of Milroe's development at
Mhm.
quarterback, I, I think the story of the season for Alabama is the improvement along the defensive line. I
Right.
really believe that. I really believe that.
I agree.
All right, Jake. Bold prediction time. This is always fun. I want a bold prediction offensively and a bold prediction defensively from you.
Offensively, bold prediction: Alabama totals 600 yards plus total yards this offensively this week. I think Milroe probably have a pretty good day through the air and with his legs, and then I really think we start seeing a little bit 70, maybe a couple guys get within 75, 80 yards rushing, two or three guys potentially. So I really think it's going to be a big game offensively. And defensively, I'm going to say we have three turnovers, whether it be interceptions or fumble recoveries. And I think one of those could potentially go for a pick six or a scoop and score.
Okay, well, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit defensively because my bold prediction defensively was that Alabama would get a defensive touchdown in the game. So
Yeah.
we'll both go with that defensively. And offensively, my bold prediction is that people will not be able to stop talking about Justice Haynes after the game.
I love it. Love it.
I think he's probably going to start seeing reps in the second quarter of this game, and really play a ton in the second half. And it would surprise me if he went over 100 yards in the game.
Hmm.
And I think it just starts generating so much buzz for him, moving forward. Even though people realize it's just Chattanooga, I think you even saw a little bit of it against Kentucky there late in that game, Jake, of just he just
Right.
runs different, man. I don't know what it is. He's got a different gear or
Hmm.
whatever it is, but the dude just picks up yards. It's
Yeah.
he's got an incredible knack for picking up positive yards every time he touches the football. So excited to see what he can do possibly this weekend against Chattanooga. So that's my bold prediction offensively, that Justice Haynes will be the talk of the town following his performance Saturday. Uh,
Um,
and go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say off that, I wouldn't be surprised because, we've seen flashes, but we haven't seen a lot of Justice Haynes. So honestly, college football really don't know what to expect with him just yet. So he has one big game. I mean, like you said, he's going to be the talk of the town and probably talk of the nation because he is a special player. He
Mhm.
hasn't got, a lot of touches yet. He's shown flashes, but he gets 20 carries in this game and has over 100 yards. You're gonna know who Justice Haynes is for sure.
No doubt about it. Hey, speaking of kind of the way he played last week, real quickly, I thought Ty Simpson looked
Yeah,
so calm and confident when he got in the game, Jake.
yeah.
I mean, I know his stats were not great, but he had one long throw that was called back for a penalty, which
Mhm.
we're still not even sure what the heck the penalty was.
Yeah.
Um, CJ Dupree dropped a pass. He really should have had all completions. I thought he threw with confidence. He threw with great timing and rhythm, and I think you're seeing a guy that's starting to, everybody's about instant gratification. He was a
Mhm.
5-star prospect, so they thought he'd show up and be a 5-star college player. Man, not every guy develops that way.
Right.
But so I think the guy we saw against South Florida to the guy we saw against Kentucky is a totally different player. I think it's a more confident player, a guy that's more comfortable in the Alabama offense. And so I was really pleased with the way Ty Simpson just kind of commanded the field when he took over for Milrose. So I was really pleased to see that because there's been a lot of talk, but if Milroe goes down, Alabama's in trouble, and I do think that Milroe gives Alabama that X factor offensively that
Mhm.
makes them from being very good to being potentially elite. I'm not sure Ty Simpson can give Alabama that this year. So Alabama needs Milroe to be healthy, but I don't think I'm confident that Ty Simpson could win games for Alabama this year because he just seems to maybe have turned that corner as well. And now I'm worried the dude's going to be gone in the transfer portal.
I know. I was really impressed with Todd Simpson as well. And one of the funny things that stands out is old Gary Danielson. We just love Gary, and not Gary Danielson, but one of the other guys. I forgot his 11 o'clock show, but I
Jordan
forgot
Rogers.
Jordan Rogers. Yeah, but he was just talking about how he wasn't that fast as a prospect. And then he takes off with like a 30-yard run, and
He
he was
jukes
like,
the
"What?"
dude out of it, jukes the
Yeah,
dude out of his shoes at the line of scrimmage and picks up a first down.
yeah. And Jordan Rogers was like, "Well, he just proved me wrong there." I was like, "Yeah." So he comes into the I've heard a lot of people talk about he doesn't run well. I'm like, what are you seeing? He's done an 8A.
Yeah.
I mean, he can run the ball. He was, like you said, a dual threat quarterback, and dual threats are passing and running. As far as
Yeah, I mean, like,
best I can remember.
apparently Jordan Rogers didn't do his homework because Ty was
Right?
the #1 dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what he was thinking. Now, maybe he was speaking in relative terms, and
Right.
relative to Jalen Milroe, he's not fast, but
No.
a
Who
cheetah isn't
is though?
either. Yeah, I mean, so
Right.
like everything's relative. So maybe he was comparing him to Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I agree with Ty. I was really impressed. You could tell the confidence level, like you said, was a
Yeah,
lot different.
he was just like he belonged, and
Right.
I use that phrase a lot, like, especially when I'm talking, like, just to friends, like, that's one thing I watch for, especially in A-Day, and especially with quarterbacks. Does he look like he belongs?
Hmm.
Or does he look like he's out of place? And he, against Kentucky, Jake, he just looked calm, cool, and collected. Now, I know Alabama was up big. There was no chance they were going to lose the game. So
Right.
that might have a little bit to do with it. But he threw with great confidence and was just really running the Alabama offense with confidence. And I was just happy to see that. Man, that quarterback room took a beating following that South Florida game, Jake.
Yep.
And the whole team did as well. But Jake, that quarterback room, there wasn't nobody in the country that was talking good things about Alabama's quarterback room.
Right.
And so I'm just happy to see that not only is Milroe becoming, honestly, one of the stars of college football. I mean, he is up there among the best players in college football at this exact moment. But it's also nice to see that Ty Simpson has progressed as well and seems to have some confidence here down the stretch for Alabama. So it's just good to see, especially considering where they all were at, in week 3 of this season.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to Tommy Rees
Yeah.
for development, and not only for getting the playbook right for Milroe to be successful, but the development of Milroe and of Ty Simpson. Because, like you said, Stacey, I feel like I hope Milroe stays healthy because, like you said, he gives us the best chance to win, especially in the next, besides this game, the next 2 games coming up that we have, the SEC Championship game in Auburn. But if something happens and Ty Simpson goes down, I do have confidence in Ty Simpson that he can lead us to a victory if everybody plays like they should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you said, he may not have that X factor like Milroe does, but he can get the job done as well.
No doubt about it. All right, Jake, let's get to our score predictions before we wrap up the show. When jump in the comments, let us know your score predictions, your thoughts on the game, your bold predictions, your key players, all that stuff. Let us know there in the comment sections because we would love to interact with you there as well. All right, Jake, let me know how this game's going to play out and your score prediction for Saturday, that dreaded 11 o'clock kickoff.
Well, I'm hoping, again, like we've talked about, do not have a letdown in this game. Do not play down to your opponent. Play up like you're playing somebody important, because I feel like, at this point, because apparently the committee will not move us up for nothing. We could win this game 100-0 and still not move up, apparently. So style points. You need style points, and you need complete domination. And by complete domination, let it be like the time the defense several years ago did not allow LSU in the national championship game past 50 yards until late in the 4th quarter. That type of domination, and have the offense just dominate and score every single time they get the ball. No mistakes free, and win this game 52-3, 52-7, something like that, maybe even 55-7. But you need to go out and make a statement to college football and to the committee, because they're not giving you any love right now. Honestly, I may be a homer here, but
You're definitely a homer.
Yeah, for sure. You can stay behind me. But the thing about it is, give me a team who has improved throughout the entire season like Alabama has. I don't think you can, because like I've said before, everybody's kind of peaked right now. We know what everybody has. you don't know what Alabama has because I feel like the offense still has not hit their mark yet. And that's scary because, I mean, we got 2 games left in the regular season, and this offense still hasn't peaked. You know, it's incredible.
That's a great point, Jake. And before we wrap up, we'll touch a little bit on the committee here. But I want to get my score prediction is 55-7 Alabama. I think for all those things that you said, they come out, play well, kind of with not a chip on their shoulder, but with something to prove, Jake. They want to prove that they're one of the best teams in the country.
Absolutely.
I think they are. I think right now you can make the argument that Georgia and Alabama are the top 2 teams in the country. I really believe that. Michigan has not. They've played Penn State. Penn State couldn't score on me and you. They fired their offensive coordinator. That tells you what they think about their offense.
Right.
Ohio State and Michigan's going to play each other. That'll work itself out. Yep. I'm not sold on Ohio State's quarterback of being good enough to win a championship. So I think right now, Alabama and Georgia are playing the best, both their best football of the season so far. And God, that matchup in 3 weeks is going to be a doozy in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to mention about the Ohio State Michigan game, whoever plays and gets to their championship, Iowa, even though they can't score, they're not giving up any scores either. Iowa's defense, I mean, it is legit. So
hey, their top corner got hurt today at practice, is what I heard.
No, that ain't good. So that might change things, but their defense has been really, really good. They can't score to falling out of hitting water falling out of a bucket right now, but their defense has been legit. So that could give either Ohio State or Michigan a tough chance. They could accidentally win that Big Ten championship because of their defense. So again, if that works itself out, have one loss. But let's get to the committee because I know you got some words about it.
Yeah, well, look, I want to know. I want to know what that conversation is in their selection process, because either who you play matters,
right,
and that strength of schedule matters, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, if I'm Alabama, if I'm Georgia, if I'm Ohio State, if I'm Michigan, if I'm whoever, I'm never once ever scheduling a Power 5 opponent out of conference again.
Nope.
If the total end all be all objection for this committee is that teams go undefeated, then why in the world, if you're in Alabama or Georgia, or Ohio State, Michigan, whoever, would you play somebody in the non-conference that is a Power 5 school that could potentially beat you? Why would you?
Right.
Play North Dakota State. Play, UMass.
Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah, play Bishop Sycamore. So I just want to know what benefit does it give you for scheduling tough non-conference opponents if you're not going to be rewarded for it, even if you lose?
Yeah.
Because if you're telling me that all it takes is winning, then I'm not scheduling those games.
Right.
And I can somewhat buy Texas being ranked ahead of Alabama at this moment. They do on the head-to-head, but I dare anyone to look at me with a straight face and say, you think Texas beats Alabama Saturday afternoon?
No, not a chance.
So I think at some point, common sense, eye test, the body of work, the total number of teams that you've beaten that are quality opponents should matter. Alabama's got 3 wins against top 20 opponents, all by 2 scores or more.
Yeah.
Alabama, out of the top 10 teams in the country, has the best opponent win-loss record of anybody in the country.
Right.
So strength of schedule should matter. Who you play should matter. And the whole body of work, not just a game that happened in week 2.
Yeah.
Look, Texas has a loss to a team that has 2 losses.
Right.
And one of those losses to an Oklahoma State team that lost to like Central Florida or South, whoever it was. I just want to know, does strength of schedule matter? Does body of work matter? Because if it does, then you can't put especially Oregon ahead of Alabama or Texas for that matter.
Right.
They've beaten Utah.
Mm-hmm. That's
They've
it.
beaten Utah.
That's it.
So I don't. It's frustrating because they talk out of both sides of the mouth.
They do. They do.
So I don't know. I don't know if that made any sense to anybody. What I just said, but it's just it just gets frustrating. Look, Alabama just needs to take care of the business. That's all they can do is take care of their business. And if the committee wants to leave them out for whatever reason, that's their prerogative. Obviously, they can do what they want to do, but none of those guys would ever leave, or ladies, whoever's on that committee, would ever pass a lie detector test and say that Alabama is not one of the 4 best teams in the country. If Alabama goes 12-1 with an SEC championship victory over Georgia and they're not put in the playoffs, there's not going to be one committee member that can pass a lie detector test that says that Alabama is not one of the 4 best teams.
Right. 100%.
And so I just and then they get up there on ESPN and they act like they're some kind of god and how like they have all the answers, Jake, and you can tell they don't know crap.
They don't.
They look at the most simplistic view of what it takes to and like they moved up. Who was they moved up? They moved up Missouri 5 spots
to number 9.
And they got 2 losses. So evidently number of losses don't matter to some teams, but they do for other teams.
Right. Exactly.
I just because they put them ahead of Louisville, right?
Yeah, and Louisville's only got 1 loss right now.
Louisville's got 1 loss. Okay, so that tells you, well, the win-loss is not quite as important, except for Alabama and Texas and Oregon, and then
right.
it don't. We're not going to pay attention to that side of it with these few teams.
Right.
They talk out of both sides of the mouth, Jake. You can't trust them. You can't trust them.
And like you've already mentioned, they do not care about strength of schedule either, because
Alabama's is up there with anybody's.
Yeah, and we're 8th out of the 1-loss teams.
Yeah, I just it's crazy. I'm not saying Alabama should be in the top 4 right now. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there ain't a soul in this country that believes there's 7 teams better than Alabama right now.
Right. Like you said, they'll fail a lot of test. I'm sorry.
They would fail it in a heartbeat.
I mean,
the person wouldn't finish the question and they'd fail it.
I mean, this is getting a situation kind of like last year. Here we go with our homerness again, but you couldn't tell me the way Alabama's season was ended last year, they won one of the 4 best teams.
Yeah, but hey, let's put TCU in there because they only had 1 loss and it was in their conference championship game. Forget who all they played and how they barely escaped every single team they played by the skin of their teeth. Forget all that. We got to let them in. They're the most deserving.
Right. And then they end up killing Michigan, which usually happens to Michigan because they don't play nobody again besides Ohio State, and whoever wins that usually gets blown out in the playoffs anyway. So then they play Georgia, and what happens? Georgia put 60-something points up on them.
Georgia beat them like a redheaded stepchild. And if you're a redheaded stepchild watching this, I'm sorry. But my gosh, I mean, they beat them like a
very first snap. You knew it. They had no chance.
TCU didn't belong in the same city as Georgia, much less the same football field.
Right.
And Jake, we all knew it. We all knew it. The committee members knew it, Jake. They knew it. In their heart of hearts, they knew it.
Yep, exactly. And
that's what makes it frustrating.
Yeah. And what did Alabama do last year in the bowl game against the team that beat TCU for their championship?
Clobbered them.
Clobbered them. Yeah.
Clobbered
so, I mean, the committee, they just, like you said, they talk out both sides of their mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. What's good for one team is not for the other. And it's crazy to me.
It is.
And that's when I saw that Missouri jumped all the way up to 9th, I thought, hey, they're looking at how teams are playing right now.
Right.
Because I think you could make the argument the way Missouri's played right now, they are probably the 9th best team. So I thought, hey, they're probably going to slide some teams up. They're going to swap some things around. I thought Alabama might move up to maybe 6th or 7th or somewhere, but no. No,
we're going to keep them at 8.
We're going to keep them at 8. And I'm not saying they have bias towards Alabama. I don't know. I don't know anybody on that committee, but I do know that they can't say with a straight face that there's 7 teams better than Alabama right now.
No, nobody in the nation can.
And you know what the point of the playoff selection each week, it's the best teams at this moment.
Right.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If that wasn't the case, why would you release the poll every week? Why wouldn't you just wait until the season's over with? If it wasn't about what you're seeing each and every week, then why release a poll every week?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's either A, there's a couple options. Either A, they don't care if they get it right. They're just kind of getting together and saying, yeah, this looks okay.
Right.
B, they are completely incompetent. Or C, they have it out for certain teams. And I'm not just saying Alabama.
Right.
Because there's no way Texas should be ranked behind Oregon.
Right.
There's no way. I don't know.
There's a scenario that could potentially happen, and I was talking to somebody at work about this today. That the way I feel, if this does happen, if Alabama does run the table and wins the SEC championship game, and then Oregon, beats whoever they play for their championship, I guess it'd be Washington. You have 2 one-loss teams there. At that point, money's got to take into consideration. And are you going to tell me that the Pac-12 is going to make more money in the playoffs with revenue than the SEC would, an SEC champion? And the answer is no. If Alabama runs the table, I feel like you're going to have to put them in just for the money aspect of it.
Yeah. Hey, I bet that's people ain't never going to admit it, but I bet that's a factor, Jake.
Yeah, money is always a factor in everything now. I mean, look at NIL. Everything's about money now. And it's ruined the game of college football. And we could talk for hours about that, but we're not going to.
Yep. Actually, right now, this is a good time to stop it. We're gonna go ahead and wrap the show up. Did not mean to go on the tangent and the rant about the College Football Playoff Committee, but
much needed though.
It's much needed because it's just frustrating to see the top. I mean, they're the leadership of college. They are college football right now.
Right.
And I don't trust them. And if you can't trust the people that are making the biggest decisions for the sport at the time, you're in a world of hurt.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Hey, that's going to wrap up our show. Thank you so much for watching our preview and prediction show for Chattanooga at Alabama. It kicks off at 11 a.m. Central on Saturday morning, ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus, whatever. So you have to stream it through that. It will not be on TV. Just a reminder. Also, there will be no biscuits for Bama this Saturday. My son has a basketball game bright and early Saturday morning, so I will not be available for that. But we will be back on the Bleacher Report app following the game to give our instant reaction to Chattanooga at Alabama. So make sure you tune in there as well. But it's been a lot of fun. Make sure you jump in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on this game. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you guys real soon. But until then, roll tide.
Roll tide.